A Pulaski County native is back in the United States after his historic trip overseas.
Major General John Epperly commemorated the 75th anniversary of D-Day last week with a special speech on Omaha Beach in Normandy.
10 News reporter Jessica Jewell introduces us to the man who's carrying on the legacy of the greatest generation.
An historic day on Omaha Beach Thursday, celebrating the freedom millions have today because of the thousands who died fighting for it 75 years ago, started with this surreal sunrise and a special speech
One of the
from a man with roots in Pulaski County.
You grew up in Southwest Virginia. It's a very, I think, patriotic part of the state. Everybody from your teachers to your Sunday school teacher and whatnot, very much laud that kind of service.
Now, Major General John Epperly commands the 29th Infantry Division in the Virginia National Guard.
Those are pretty big shoes to fill for anyone that comes after them.
The same division that was one of the first to break through German lines on D-Day, and proud to have included the Bedford Boys.
The emotions are there every time you go to that place. It really is hallowed ground, especially for our division.
And that's where he stood early Thursday morning, speaking to a crowd of hundreds that included family members of those killed on D-Day.
You find yourself thinking, wow, if I'd been here that morning, it is absolutely amazing what those young Americans did that day.
Now Epperly is doing his best to carry on that legacy with his words
that have come since then. And I would encourage us all to please keep on doing that. As long as we do that.
And his actions.
And I train my soldiers that we're ready to go when the call comes, if the call comes, so that we can maintain the freedom that was bought at so high a price by those who came before us.
Saluting the greatest generation by carrying out the mission those before him started on Omaha Beach. Jessica Jewell, 10 News, working for you.